Picture this. It is past midnight. The tech world is half asleep. And without a keynote, without a live stream, a Chinese lab quietly uploads a model to GitHub. Within hours, roadmaps in San Francisco, London, and Bangalore are on fire. Because this is not just another chatbot. It is an open source system claiming GPT-5 level reasoning, tuned for agents at around 1/30th the cost of OpenAI's flagship. If that is even half true, the price of intelligence just broke. Here is the twist. This ambush did not come from OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google. It came from DeepSeek, a Chinese lab that just dropped two models. DeepSeek V3.2, the general-purpose daily driver, and DeepSeek V3.2 Special, a slow-thinking variant built for deep reasoning and complex agents. No glossy stage, just a late-night X post and some open weights. And yet, it instantly hijacked the AI news cycle. In a minute, you will see why people are calling this a turning point, not a footnote. Let us start with what actually shipped, because DeepSeek did not just toss out a single giant model. V3.2 is the standard one, a reasoning-first system you can already use in a browser chat or via an API like you would GPT 4.1 or Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Then there is V3.2 Special, sometimes called the thinking model, which you access only through API. It is slower, burns more tokens, and is explicitly tuned for long, deliberate problem solving. Here is the pattern break. They are not building a chatbot. They are building an agent brain and a strategist side by side. DeepSeek calls both models reasoning first. That means they are trained not just to answer politely, but to run multi-step tool calls, chain long thoughts, and coordinate sub-agents. In practice, V3.2 is the front-end brain you would point at customers, documents, or everyday coding. Special is the back-end strategist you unleash on hard math, code forces style puzzles, or multi-hour planning tasks. This split quietly productizes what other labs hide behind secret thinking modes and flags. And it sets up the real question for you. Which brain do you actually need? So is this really GPT-5 level, or just hype from a slick slide deck? On humanity's last exam, a leak-resistant reasoning benchmark designed to punish memorization, DeepSeek V3.2 lands around 25%, with the special variant at roughly 30%. That is in the same band as GPT-5 High and Gemini 3 Pro. On competitive programming tests like Codeforces and LiveCodeBench, V3.2 Special even edges past GPT-5 High in some setups, especially when it is allowed to think using thousands of intermediate tokens. But here is the part nobody expected from an open model. This is no longer a scrappy underdog. It is trading blows with the best closed systems on the planet. Of course, the benchmarks are not drama-free. DeepSeek keeps comparing against GPT 5.0, not the newer GPT 5.1 that OpenAI released only weeks earlier. In a race where minor point releases can add several percentage points on math and coding, that choice looks more strategic than accidental. Some charts also show suspiciously identical scores across different models down to the decimal, which is statistically odd and suggests heavy rounding or reused baselines. The lesson for you is simple. Treat the graphs as evidence of parity, not proof of total dominance. And the real stakes are not a 2% bump on some obscure leaderboard. They are what happens when this power goes open and cheap. When you zoom out, the reality check is nuanced. On some reasoning suites, DeepSeek V3.2 sits near GPT-5 High, but still trails Gemini 3 Pro and Claude 4.5 Opus on the hardest multi-step tasks and messy prompts. Coding is where the gap really shows, on SWE Bench and SWE Bench Verified, which test real GitHub repositories end-to-end. Claude Opus still dominates, reliably editing production code in a way DeepSeek cannot yet match. So no, this is not a clean DeepSeek beats everyone story. It is a story of an open model entering the same performance envelope as the frontier, which is arguably more disruptive. Here is where it gets brutal for incumbents: price. DeepSeek V3.2 delivers near GPT-5 performance at roughly 30 times lower cost for long context workloads. That means a startup running thousands of calls per day can suddenly afford experiments that would have been financially insane on OpenAI. Now the question shifts from who is the absolute best to who is best at this job at this price. In a moment, we will dig into the secret sauce that makes that pricing possible, and it is not just cheaper hardware. The core trick is something called DeepSeek Sparse Attention, or DSA, and it is more than an implementation detail. Classic transformers treat every token in a long context as equally important, so cost explodes roughly with the square of the sequence length. 4 times longer context can mean about 16 times more compute. DSA breaks that link by acting like a lightning indexer. Instead of reading a 400-page book line by line, the model jumps straight to the few pages that matter and spends its compute there. Under the hood, that means attention is sparse and targeted. Only a small subset of attention heads and token positions actually fire on each step, guided by learned relevance patterns and hardware-aware layouts. The result, a 128,000 token context window that behaves, cost-wise, more like an 8 to 32,000 token model from a few years ago. That is why DeepSeek can keep entire code bases, legal cases, or months of chat history in a single prompt without blowing the budget. And here is the payoff. By only executing 10 to 20% of potential attention interactions, they can justify public prices that undercut Western labs by an order of magnitude. This efficiency is not just about cheaper chats, it is what makes the special reasoning variant viable. When V3.2 special enters its extended thinking mode, it can generate very long chains of thought inside that 128,000 token window. DSA keeps those traces from turning into a financial black hole. So the model can afford to think harder, longer, and still stay dramatically cheaper than GPT-5 for real workloads. That changes who can build serious agents. It is no longer just hedge funds and megacore. It is you, your team, your weekend project. And agents are exactly where DeepSeek aims this thing. Traditional large language model workflows bolt tools on from the outside. A wrapper decides when to call a calendar, a Python runtime, or a search API, then feeds results back into the model. DeepSeek's bet is more radical. Fuse thinking and tool use inside the same forward pass. V3.2's internal thinking mode produces structured intermediate traces that explicitly include tool selection, arguments, and branches, all trained across more than 1,800 environments and 85,000 complex instructions. What does that look like for you in practice? Ask V3.2 to plan a 10-day trip across Japan on a $3,000 budget. And an agent can, in principle, search flights, compare rail passes, pull hotel prices, and reconcile everything against your constraints as one coherent reasoning chain. For data work, it can read CSV files, join them with CRM exports, run Python-based statistical tests, and then draft a slide deck summary. The same goes for automation. A weekly links from today's video digest could fetch your transcript, extract URLs, classify them, update Notion, and schedule an email blast, all without a separate orchestration layer. This is not a chatbot answering questions. It is a junior employee doing your job. Strategically, that collapses the old stack of model plus agent framework plus tool router into a single trained policy. DeepSeek openly calls V3.2 its first models built for agents. Combined with open weights, that is a direct challenge to Western labs that still keep their best agent capabilities behind closed APIs and secret flags. The power balance is shifting. For the last year, analysts said Chinese labs were 6 to 12 months behind the frontier. With V3, V3.1, and now V3.2, that lag has compressed to weeks, and they are iterating in public while others ship closed betas. So, should you actually switch to DeepSeek? If you are an enterprise doing massive, high-risk coding refactors, Claude 4.5 Opus probably still wins today. If you need broad, multimodal reasoning with vision and planning, Gemini 3 Pro remains a strong generalist. But if you are a startup, a researcher, or a builder who cares about cost, experimentation, and owning your stack, V3.2 is suddenly the aggressive workhorse in the mix. The right question is no longer who is the smartest, but who is smart enough for this task at this price and with this level of openness. The real stakes go beyond product choice. Open sourcing a model in the GPT-5 class means the cutting edge is no longer locked behind 3 American APIs. It means more countries, more companies, and more individuals can run frontier-level reasoning on their own hardware. That accelerates innovation, but it also accelerates risk from automated cyber attacks to mass-scale persuasion engines. The question is not just what DeepSeek can do, but who gets to wield it and under which rules. We are entering a world where intelligence really might become too cheap to meter. A world where you can spin up a fleet of agents that read entire code bases, reason over months of data, and act across dozens of tools for the price of a few coffees. DeepSeek V3.2 is not perfect, and it does not erase the advantages of Gemini or Claude overnight. But it proves that open models can now stand shoulder to shoulder with the frontier. The next wave of AI products and the next wave of job automation will be built on top of systems like this. If you want to stay ahead of that curve, now is the time to pay attention. In upcoming videos, we will break down how to actually build agents on top of DeepSeek, how it compares live against GPT 5.1 and Claude in real workflows, and what this open source arms race means for your career. So tell me in the comments, would you trust a Chinese open model to run your core workflows, or are you sticking with the closed AP is? Hit subscribe if you want that deep dive, and share this with one person who still thinks open source AI is a generation behind. This story is moving faster than anyone expected, and you do not want to